Hello everyone, meteorologist Sam Kantrow here. The time now just shy of 4 p.m. and we've got another update for you on Hurricane Dorian. Hopefully you're having a fantastic day. And the reason why we're coming back to you each and every hour about this storm is not because we're concerned majorly about it impacting us here in Connecticut, but more so we're concerned about our friends and families that live down in Florida. I myself have family that lives down in Florida too. So to keep you updated, we want to keep checking back and show you what the views look like down there and also what you can expect over the upcoming days. Now, this is actually a live view outside from the coast of Florida, the east coast of Florida, that is. And you can see there's a photographer down there that's moving the camera around, and it is quite choppy and quite nasty out there. Now, the worst of the weather, still not yet at that point in Florida. Now, we are not expecting Dorian to make humongous issues for the west coast of Florida and even down towards Miami, but points north of there, that is a different story. There will definitely be rough weather at points during the day today and into tomorrow as well. All right, so what's the deal? What is the storm looking like? Well, at this point right now, it is still a Category 2 hurricane with winds of 110 miles per hour. You can see it spinning around, and you can see its well-defined eye, and it has had quite a well-defined eye over the last handful of days. Now, note what things are doing out there in Florida itself. While Tampa is not in a risk area for potentially damaging winds or storm surge, there are still outer bands of this storm that are getting thrown in that direction, and a tremendous amount of rain that falls, a tropical moisture source, of course, that falls all the way across the state of Florida. So the weather is going to be rough over there through today and into tomorrow as well. Some of the information on this storm that we've gotten recently, unfortunately, we've seen at least 5, or heard about at least 5 people dying in the storm in the Abacos. Also, storm surge in the Bahamas to near 20 feet. And according to the Red Cross, more than 13,000 homes have been damaged or completely destroyed as well, making it the strongest storm in the Bahamas ever in recorded history over the last couple hundred years, which means that it was a rough one, a really rough storm that moved through. You know, winds gusted at times to near 200 miles per hour. So some of the information on this storm is that we are looking at dangerous winds in the storm. And those winds that we're looking at, again, we've already heard about over 200 mile per hour winds. But in Grand Bahama Island, it's going to continue to be extremely windy for several more hours. The bottom of the screen here on the right side, you can see where the arrival times are for tropical storm force winds. And we're going to zoom into that graphic and show it to you in a couple of minutes. But storm surge is going to be dangerous and likely for the entire coast of Florida, all the way up into the Carolina coast, from South Carolina up towards North Carolina. That means it could be life-threatening. There are areas that have mandatory evacuation orders. If you know anyone who is in the mandatory evacuation order area, the advice is to make sure that they leave. Note number 3, the storm surge and hurricane force winds continue and will continue to increase all the way along the coast of not just South Carolina, but North Carolina as well. And the threat for flash flooding as well. Not just along the coast, but inland too, as we head from now into and through the day tomorrow, before Florida leaves the track of the storm or the worst of the storm. Now, it has started to pick up in its speed, at least, not so much in regards to the wind speed that we're seeing in the storm, but the actual movement of the storm. Last check, it was 5 miles per hour, but we'll get the latest update together in a couple of seconds. By Wednesday at 2 o'clock in the morning, this center of the storm looks to be somewhere over the northern part of Florida across towards Jacksonville. So that's where tropical storm force winds or greater are likely to be felt. That will be the case in Georgia also through tomorrow morning, South Carolina through tomorrow afternoon, and into North Carolina by Thursday. So what does all the coloring mean? Well, here's the deal. Anywhere that you see that purple coloring, that means the probability of near 100% chance of seeing tropical storm force winds are. So that's why for a good portion of the immediate coastline, they're just outside of that for Florida. Then as you head into the coast of Florida, that's where you're looking at about a 60 to 70% chance of seeing winds that will be greater than that speed. And then as you head through the upcoming days, they also decrease the likelihood just because naturally it's a little bit harder to get a real accurate idea as to whether or not that's going to happen. I actually think we'll probably see worse winds along the South Carolina and North Carolina coast than areas that are off the coast of Florida, despite there being plenty of wave action and also some storm surge out there that will likely cause moderate flooding. The storm is a Category 2 storm, by the way. If it had been another 60 or 70 miles inland, it would have caused major issues. We've seen very little increase in winds through the course of the day today from West Palm Beach all the way up towards Melbourne. In fact, the wind is actually relaxed by a couple miles per hour. Still winds that are gusting near 40 miles an hour. Of course, that's not anything to write home about. That's not even really tropical storm force wind criteria. It's right on the cusp there. And down in Miami, there's not much wind. But we are starting to see the winds increasing some as you head a little bit north. Jacksonville wasn't registering any winds. Now they're getting gusts to 30 mile an hour winds. Okay, that's really not that big of a deal. And of course, no winds are being registered or wind gusts that are substantial up from Myrtle Beach all the way towards Virginia Beach. But they certainly will see some of those winds once they get into the upcoming days. So the latest information on this hurricane is that it is a strong Category 2 storm, weakening from a major Category 3 hurricane, but still a major hurricane that is seeing winds that are gusting to 125 or so miles per hour. The movement now northwest at 5 miles an hour, so it is moving slightly in the direction of Florida, although the Florida coast sort of moves in a north-northwest direction. As you look a little bit to the north of Orlando, so areas around Jacksonville, Florida, that's where there is a natural inlet. And that's where we're going to have to watch as the winds continue to batter the coastline with the waves over the upcoming hours and also upcoming days. So let's move along the line as we track this storm together so you can see the timeline of everything here. And as we move from today into the day tomorrow at 8 a.m., it's still a Category 2 storm with winds of 110 miles per hour. Note how it's not really weakening, and that's because it's moving through water that's quite warm. Water temperatures out there on that side of, or across in the Atlantic Ocean, I should say. Not on that side of the Atlantic. There is no, well, the other side, I guess, would be in Europe. The water temperature is well into the 80s, and so the storm is going to continue to maintain its strength as it moves up the coast, moving into the direction of Myrtle Beach. In fact, Myrtle Beach is quite close to where the eye of the hurricane may very well move over, which is exactly why it's going to have to be monitored very closely. And it gets close, and I'm telling you, it really, really gets close, where we are looking at the storm that is within just a couple miles of land in the area around Myrtle Beach and Cape Hatteras. Get a little closer in so you can see what we're talking about. And somewhere between Myrtle Beach and Wilmington, it very well may make landfall as a Category 2 storm. So we will need to watch that closely. Now, the color that you see over here, right in the center, that I've zoomed really close into, just to kind of point out Cape Hatteras and some of the other areas like Morehead City, that's where the National Hurricane Center has the center of the cone located. That does not necessarily mean that that's where the middle of the storm will move. In fact, it could move inland as far south as Myrtle Beach or even further south than Myrtle Beach. So we will be monitoring that very closely. We'll also watch our weather closely too, because as we head from Friday into the day on Saturday, that's when the likelihood for it to move closer towards Connecticut, where we could potentially get some fringe effects of this storm at some point on Friday or Saturday. We have put rain into the forecast on Friday, but it does look like it's not going to be nearly as severe as it could be for us here in Connecticut. So that's obviously the good news there. And then it'll continue to move away. Now, I'll bring this right up on the screen here so you can see what we're looking at. This is a graphic that talks about the timing of the winds. Now, the coloring that you see on screen here is the yellow is indicating the potential for tropical storm force winds. Closer you get to the red, the more likely you are to see hurricane force winds. And the timeline right there on the top of the screen. So this is 4 o'clock. 4 o'clock on Tuesday. Now we're going to go from 4 o'clock on Tuesday into the day on Wednesday and into the overnight hours on Wednesday night. And by Thursday morning, Savannah, Georgia, seeing what very well could be winds equivalent to a strength of a Category 1 storm. Latest check, this storm is about 250 miles across. So even if you're not right on the center of the storm, you could still certainly see really rough winds. And Charleston is next in line. Now, the Carolina coast is kind of funky, where there are a lot of these inlets. And depending on the wind direction, some of them may see really, really bad flooding, like as bad as it was in the last hurricane. So if you know anybody that is under a mandatory evacuation order, I would advise you to advise them to leave, because you need to take those seriously. Will it make landfall? At this point right now, I'd say about a 50-50 shot that it will. And I can show you some of the forecast model trends with that. And these are spaghetti plots that basically break down all of the individual forecast models to give you an idea and a depiction as to what it's going to look like, or where the eye may very well move over. And you can see that many of them show the eye making landfall somewhere along the coast near Charleston or Myrtle Beach. So we'll have to wait and see what ends up happening with that over the next couple of days. So that's what's going on. That's your 4 p.m. update on this hurricane. Now at 5 o'clock, we're going to get another update from the National Hurricane Center. That we will show and share with you on the air. Joe will be live at 5. I'll also be live at 5, showing some of the damage that this storm has already left, some of the preps happening as well, so you can stay tuned for that on News 8 at 5 o'clock. Hey, thanks so much for checking in with me during the course of the afternoon for all of these updates. And for more, of course, you can get the latest on the WTNH app and on the website as well. Have a fantastic afternoon, everyone. We'll see you on News 8 at 5, live on TV. Take it easy.